This year marks the Tri-Centennial for Louisiana's picturesque and timeless city of Natchitoches, the oldest permanent settlement in the Louisiana Purchase. Over the past 300 years, the influences of French, Spanish, Creole, and Native Americans have made Natchitoches one of the most historically rich and culturally diverse areas in the country. And you are invited to come along and celebrate Natchitoches, a Tri-Centennial.
Funding for this program was made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you. Thank you.
The historic town of Natchitoches holds claim as the oldest permanent settlement in the Louisiana Purchase. And one look down the brick-paved streets and French Quarter-style buildings of downtown offers a constant reminder of a well-preserved historical record that took 300 years to create. A statue at one end of Front Street honors the city's founding father, Frenchman Louis Juchereau de St.
Louis Juchereau de St. was a French soldier, and he was sent up here because, well, number one, he was told, find out where the Spanish are. But one thing we've learned about St. Denis since is he was real savvy and wanted to work some friendships or deals maybe, and so he was up here to find out where the Spanish were. When St. Denis first arrived, the Native Americans he met were a Caddo tribal group known as the Natchitoches. I believe the French would have pronounced it close to Natchitoches, and a rough translation of that is actually pawpaw eater. And pawpaws are a fruit that grow on trees. In some places in Louisiana, I know, but I've never seen one personally.
St. Denis established a military and trading post called Fort St. Jean-Baptiste. A replica of the 18th century Garrison is a popular setting for tourists as well as students taking in an outdoor history lesson.
When the French first arrived, of course, there were no priests in this area, but they built this small chapel here for the families and the soldiers to worship in. And this is the first church built in all of the Louisiana Purchase.
Dr. Susan Dollar is a history professor at Northwestern State University. As French soldiers kept a watchful eye to Spanish settlements roughly 20 miles west of Natchitoches, it was also up to St. Denis to establish a working coexistence with the Indians.
But he met the Indians pretty fast, and the Natchitoches Indians were suffering a flood at the time, and their crops were not doing good, and he convinced them to move away just until the land got better. He would bring them back later, but legend has it he told the Indians, from this day forward the French will be forever among you. And that's really been true in so many ways.
The fort sat along what was then the Red River, but the course of the river changed. Over time, a logjam north of the fort shut down the flow and would leave behind a 35-mile oxbow water formation known as Cane River Lake.
Well, number one, it saved Natchitoches. If that river had not moved, I predict we would have become a big shipping merchant town like Shreveport when Captain Shreve arrived up there. When it became the city at the headwaters of the Red River, it thrived, it modernized, new buildings came in. We stopped on a standstill, and we didn't tear down downtown, and we still have our old buildings. So many times I think, you know, I'm awfully glad that big river changed course.
Plantation homes prospered along the banks of the Cane River, including Melrose Plantation, one of the largest in the United States, built by and for free blacks. The plantation is significant for its long occupancy by the Moquier family, which was prominent in Iberville, a strong center of the Creoles of color community. That always leads many tourists to ask, what exactly is Creole and Creole heritage?
Well, very simply, you could say, I'm not white and I'm not black. I'm just a mixture of white and black and everything else in between.
The simplest definition that I use is anyone who was born in colonial Louisiana or descended from someone born in colonial Louisiana. That leaves it wide open. For many years, the Creoles of color were told by Americans, you're not Creole, you're black. Well, they are too Creole. They were descended from people here in the 1700s, and many of them have Indian blood in them, French blood in them, Spanish blood in them. So an aspect that many people mention is that mixture of Old World and New World stock and creating a new kind of people.
Learn all about the history and see what my family have accomplished throughout the years. And I've seen over the years how when people come and visit Melrose, it's inspired other family, people that have never thought about genealogy. It encouraged them to check out their family and see what they can find.
Melrose Plantation would change hands over the years and would later become a haven for artists in the early 1900s, thanks to Cammie Garrett Henry. Over time, Melrose hosted well-known writers of the 20th century, including Lyle Saxon. It was at Melrose that Saxon wrote his best-known novel, Children of Strangers, which portrays the Cane River area. This is also home to a collection of works by renowned artist Clementine Hunter and her depictions of life along the Cane River. This building is known as the African House at Melrose Plantation, originally used to store food. The second floor of this structure now preserves murals created by Clementine in 1955. Clementine first began painting in her 50s using brushes and paints left by an artist who visited Melrose Plantation. A one-time plantation field hand and cook, Clementine became one of the best-known self-taught artists. Painting from memory, many have called her the Black Grandma Moses.
My head. In my head, just in my mind. That's the way I paint, by my mind. Anything come in my mind, I try to paint. Oh, it just got in my mind. I just got a piece of paper, paste bowl, mark on that. I didn't know was it right or wrong. I just painted. Every one I painted, I gave it away. I didn't keep none of it. That's the way I paint.
In the 1940s, she sold her paintings for as little as a quarter. By the 70s, she was charging hundreds of dollars for a painting, and by the time of her death, her work was being sold by dealers for thousands of dollars. Miss Cammie also preserved the history of her day, creating 256 scrapbooks of newspaper clippings, letters, and pictures. It is the foundation of the historical archival collection at Northwestern State University, aptly known as the Cammie G. Henry Research Center.
I would say she is the original archivist. Many times over when I look at her material, I go, wow, I can't believe you saved that. That is so miraculous. She had a bindery on her plantation, and she bound like volumes together. And not only that, she had a library about Louisiana by Louisiana authors of Louisiana's history. All of that has been incorporated in the Cammie Henry Research Center.
Cammie Henry paved the way for preservation ever since. Generations of Natchitoches families have fought vigorously to preserve the historic elements they felt were priceless. Case in point, about 50 years ago, the iconic century-old bricks that make up Front Street were about to be removed for a new paved road.
The major problem came in the late 1950s and 60s when the state of Louisiana decided to update its highway system, and they wanted to pave Highway 6, which runs through the very front of Natchitoches. The only problem was it was covered with historic, over 100-year-old bricks. And the day arrived when the bulldozers approached the end of Front Street, and the ladies just decided, we're going to stop this. And of course, the construction crew was upset, and they called the governor's office, which was Governor Earl K. Long, his third term. And they, of course, explained the situation, that there were a group of very angry ladies sitting in the middle of the street. And Governor Long said, well, I can face the Louisiana legislature, but I am not going to face a group of angry women protesting. And so what happened was the lady saved the street, and immediately the bulldozer stopped, the construction stopped, and after that, we saved our brick streets.
There are no pictures of the actual event, but those ladies and other members of the Association for the Preservation of Historic Natchitoches enjoyed a reenactment in 1992. How important was that one act back in the 50s?
Very important, very, very important. When the city fathers were planning, their whole goal seemed to be progressive economically, and yet you had an organization that came through and said that there was a cultural preservation that needed to take place. If you can't remember your past, then you can't see what your future holds for you.
The Association for the Preservation of Historic Natchitoches, or APHN, has been vital to the city. They are headquartered in the Lemee House, a structure built in 1837 that served both as a bank and a residence.
The Lemee House is one of our treasures. It belongs actually to the city of Natchitoches, and they lease it to our organization for 99 years, at which time we took this building in the 1940s, stopped it from being destroyed through the plans of progressionism, and restored it. In the beginning, the Lemee House was a bank, and the history of this beautiful building goes back not just to the commerce, but to the family that lived here as well. One side of the building was the bank, the other side of the building was the housing of the Lemee family. As a bank, there were many times when deposits were being made in the evening times, as we are just a few hundred yards from what was the Red River at the time. Boats would come into the harbor here, if you will, and they would dock below us, and there they would be bringing their goods into the bank late at night, and fear of robbers and thieves made them build a tunnel from the Red River all the way under what is now Front Street to this building. So outside there is a tunnel, which is now closed up, but children love to hear the story of the underground tunnel of Lemee House.
One history lesson comes out of Trinity Episcopal Church on 2nd Street, emphasizing a golden rule, thou shalt not steal. During the final days of the Civil War, a group of Union soldiers were intent on taking the church bell from the tower and harvest it for the metal. It might be worth something.
But before they did, someone, I suspect it might have been a commanding officer, took time to read the inscription, and they found out that a Union Army official's daughter had died under the care of the rector at the Episcopal Church. Her father appreciated the kindness and the gentle care that they gave his daughter so much, he donated the bell to the Episcopal Church. And one of the more rationally thinking young men there decided, I don't think we better cut this down. We better leave it.
And the lesson of history and preservation lives on. Leave it alone and leave your place a little bit better for the next generation. As the historic town of Natchitoches celebrates its Tri-Centennial, another milestone is worth noting. This marks the 25th anniversary of the movie Steel Magnolias, written by Natchitoches native Robert Harling and filmed throughout the city. The 1989 film included Hollywood A-list actors Sally Field, Dolly Parton, Shirley MacLaine, Daryl Hannah, Olympia Dukakis, and Julia Roberts, just to name a few. The film took roughly 4 months to shoot, and it still holds fond memories for residents to this day.
It was fun because my mom lived right behind the Steel Magnolias house at the time, and we housed the bridesmaids' dresses, and so every morning the bridesmaids would come and change, and they filmed the reception scene right across the hallway, across the road.
Did you have any encounters with any of the stars?
You'd see the stars like Sally Field. You'd see her strolling her baby down the sidewalk. You'd see Tom Skerritt riding his bicycle. you would see the stars, but it was sort of an unwritten rule in Natchitoches that give them their space, and they did.
And they were very congenial, just funny. I mean, you know, they were really funny. Dolly sang to us in the elevator, and, you know, just things like that. They got involved in the community.
But it was such a treat because there's so many people who will even today say, well, I saw Julia Roberts at the grocery store. Well, I even say, I saw Daryl Hannah kissing Jackson Brown outside of DeRay Motor Company. And so we still have that little small town, well, guess what I saw? And we like to share those little quips back and forth.
The critically acclaimed film is known throughout the world. This movie is an adaptation of Robert Harling's play of the same name. Steel Magnolias' title suggests the main characteristics of Southern women having the qualities of great strength and gentleness.
Well, it's the kind of thing where you grow up with it, so you don't analyze it too much, but you understand that there's a wonderful gentility and a civility and a graciousness and a tremendous desire to make one feel as comfortable as one can possibly feel, and that might be somehow looked upon as fragile, as a fragility or a fragile nature. But once you get to know Southern women, you know that they are incredibly strong, and I think it's just the most wonderful combination of qualities, the delicacy, but the underlying strength.
The death of Shelby, the character played by Julia Roberts, is based on the passing of the playwright's sister, Susan Harling Robinson, in 1985 from complications due to diabetes.
She was a wonderful lady, and I feel that all I did was tell her story. It was so inspirational to everyone who knew her, and I'm just lucky I was able to put a few words on paper and keep her spirit alive and what she stood for, because I think she was the classic great Louisiana gal.
Shelby's story and the popularity of Steel Magnolias lives on to this day. The home where much of the movie was shot is now a bed and breakfast. And you could say Natchitoches resident Dan Dias is more than just a fan. He bought the Steel Magnolia house.
We had another bed and breakfast that we bought a couple of years before that in Lasyone, Louisiana. And so I'd be on the front porch. I like sitting in a rocking chair on the front porch. And I would just see people coming over here to get their picture made in front of Steel Magnolias. It's a historic home. We really wanted to make Steel Magnolias a place for community gatherings, for people just to open it up and let people enjoy it. And so that's one of the reasons we made it a bed and breakfast. The whole thing is important, and we wanted, my wife and I, Desiree, wanted to make sure that we preserved it in a way that is fitting for people to enjoy. We did our very best to make it comparable to the house that it was when the movie was made.
There are 6 bedrooms, including Shelby's, that is decorated in her favorite color of pink. And in the downstairs living room, one of the favorite guest activities is to watch Steel Magnolias on the big screen.
We had guests this past weekend, and they watched the movie twice. So the movie will be playing, and it's sort of surreal that you're watching the movie, and then you look over here, and there's the kitchen, or there's the place that Shelby told her mother that she was pregnant. Then you go into the pantry, and she can't reach high enough, so Shelby helps her. I mean, you see all these things. You see the stairwell. You see all these things, and you're sitting there watching the movie.
It does not take long until you understand that Steel Magnolias is more than just a movie to the people of Natchitoches.
I've been personal friends with the family all my life, and the character of Shelby was based on the girl that was my babysitter when I was a little girl, and I just loved her. She was my favorite one, and we went to the same church together. And ironically, the Shelby character was in the hospital for her final visit the same time my dad was, and the two families were in the intensive care unit waiting room together, and so we shared a lot of moments. And what I like about it is that show brought laughter into a really sad situation, and I am even amazed today that Bobby, or Robert, I guess I should call him, was able to infuse humor and laughter into a most real and poignant time period.
I had a customer from Australia in the store about 2 months ago, and she had come to Natchitoches to see Steel Magnolia House.
Miss Dickens called me one day, said, that's how we, everybody knows everybody in Natchitoches. He said, I have a couple here from Australia that want to see Steel Magnolias. Can we get in? I said, yeah, we can get in. I'll be there in a few minutes. And so we have interest from Oklahoma, Mississippi, Australia, New York. We have just a constant flow of people wanting just to come through Steel Magnolia. The Steel Magnolia movie is very important. It's very important to Natchitoches and the whole community, and I think the state of Louisiana, that we can be a part of it, and we're happy about it.
While Natchitoches is the oldest city in Louisiana, this historic town is also home to quite the futuristic architectural wonder. This ultra-modern building is home to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame and Northwest Louisiana History Museum. Inside, over 300 inductees of the Sports Hall of Fame are honored. And in the summer of 2013, LSU and NBA All-Star Shaquille O'Neal was part of a very big grand opening.
It's a great honor. I'm in love with the state of Louisiana, people from Louisiana, the food, the culture, and I'm just honored that I was chosen for this event. But it's a lot of great athletes. You know that this is a great event. It's a great town. It's a great state, and you couldn't be in a better place than Natchitoches.
I'm Terry Bradshaw. Welcome to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame.
While the Hall of Fame building is new, the idea was first conceived in 1958 when a group of sports writers got together in Lake Charles.
And they started talking about, wouldn't it be great if we had a Hall of Fame to celebrate the greatest figures in Louisiana sports? That's what hatched the dream. And here we are, more than 60 years later, finally having not only realized the dream, but far exceeding it.
The museum holds over 27,000 square feet of displays, memorabilia, and artifacts.
Some of the really interesting pieces that we have a Saints cheerleaders outfit from the very first season, 1967, which is just fascinating. It's wool, and just imagining someone wearing that in August in Tulane Stadium outside in New Orleans, I couldn't imagine it. It might not have been very comfortable to wear. And then on our second floor, we have some really memorable items and a few relics from Louisiana's high school boxing. Some of the robes, whether it's some of the gloves, some of the programs from the state meets, a few LSU jerseys as well when they were a powerhouse in college boxing.
You can find Olympic gold at the Hall of Fame. This 1996 medal belongs to 2014 inductee Venus Lacey. The Louisiana Tech Star Center also won a national championship at Ruston in 1988. Another eye-catcher is this large silver trophy in the shape of the state capitol.
That is the Louisiana Golf Association trophy. It's still an active trophy, and it's just beautiful. And it's one of those great things to ask students and young kids when they come through the museum. What is this building? What does this building look like? And usually it's 50-50 as to if they realize that it's the state capitol. I've heard the Empire State Building a few times.
Louisiana is known as the sportsman's paradise, and one of the persons to lead that charge was Grits Gresham, the host of ABC's The American Sportsman series from 1966 to 1979. A champion of the environment and conservation, he was a resident of Natchitoches.
So we've got that hunting and fishing component as well, and a lot of great names. I know Duck Dynasty is big now, but we have a little section for Grits Gresham, one of the original outdoorsmen on TV, and his impact on Louisiana, I think nationally, is really important. It's sort of bringing that conservation edge to the national public.
The museum also holds a pristine collection of Pete Maravich newspaper clippings from one 12-year-old boy growing up in Louisiana.
If every kid in Baton Rouge wanted to be like Pete. Long before there was Michael Jordan, there was Pete Maravich, and everybody wanted to be Pete. And I was a huge fan. I was an aspiring basketball player, and I kept a scrapbook of every clipping from the Picayune, the Advocate, and the State Times, which then existed in Baton Rouge, 2 dailies. And this is a chronicle of Pete Maravich's career at LSU.
At first glance, you might not think that such a contemporary structure fits into such a historic town here in Natchitoches, but over time, the idea is that this will become a historic facility, a historic piece of architecture. It draws from many of the architectural components in the area, whether it's the plantations with the louvers on the exterior, the way that the walls curve and flow. It represents the water in the way that the Cane River has really influenced the area. So it really draws in a lot of things that don't necessarily notice at first, but once you look at everything, it sort of makes sense and you see that flow.
And even though the Sports Hall of Fame might grab most of the headlines, it's important to remind people this is also the site of the Northwest Louisiana History Museum.
It's so important to those of us who love Natchitoches history that a building that was going up downtown in that one of the oldest parts of town would not even, we could not imagine they're not doing some history. So when we found out we were really excited, and that at least gives a connection to the historical setting it sits in, and it gives a nod to the past here.
So in addition to the sports component, we also have a lot of history represented for the region, whether it's the Caddo Nation all the way up through some of the great women of Louisiana. Clementine Hunter, we have a number of her paintings here. This museum is a blend of really sports, Louisiana history, and a history of sports, just in one beautiful facility.
This is your museum.
This is your museum.
Hey folks, hey, this is your museum. Enjoy it, it's special.
But what I love about the Sports Museum is, too, it kind of gets you thinking of the future and thinking of, I wonder if the Saints are going to win a Super Bowl again. Oh, they better, I'm hoping.
Justin Newhart with the Cane River National Heritage Area offers free walking tours around the historic streets of Natchitoches. And hitting the bricks with Justin for a few minutes is guaranteed to give you a greater appreciation of what makes Natchitoches a timeless classic.
We're walking past the Kaffie-Frederick General Store right now. It is the oldest general store in Louisiana, built in 1863 by the Cathy family. And the Kaffie-Frederick still own and operate it to this day.
What is interesting about what's inside this store?
It is still a typical general store. You can get everything you need there, from cooking equipment to hardware to clothes. I mean, they have it all right
Little
here.
Red Wagon.
Little red wagons. You can get your catfish fryers if you want to, go tailgate an LSU game and fry up some catfish. They're portable. I mean, they have everything here that you need. So I do quite a bit of shopping here because it's almost easier than going to a grocery store when I need supplies for my kitchen.
What's next?
What's next? We're going to talk about the plantation culture of the Cane River, what it's known for today, and how that generated quite a bit of wealth for the French Creole planters, as well as the influx of Americans that came into the region after the Louisiana Purchase. Cotton was king throughout the South, and especially here in the Cane River region, especially starting in the 1790s and going up through the Civil War. And the wealth generated from those cotton plantations downriver allowed those planters to build large townhomes here in downtown Natchitoches. From right to left, we have the Ducanal Townhouse, the Blanchard building in the middle and the Prudhomme building on the left. And they were all built between 1830 and 1850. Excellent examples of traditional Creole townhouse style architecture, very similar to what you would see in New Orleans. Interestingly enough, the Duquesnoy townhouse and the Blanchard building still have their original carriageways into a rear courtyard. They're the only two buildings in the city that still have those. This was the heart of Natchitoches after the Spanish period. When the French were here from 1714 to 1763, this was all cow pasture or forest. There was nothing here. The downtown was where the fort is today.
Tell me about this Walk of Fame.
The Walk of Fame is for famous Natchitoches residents and also Steel Magnolias, actors and actresses, and also the great John Wayne. One of his movies was filmed at Oakland Plantation.
I think that's a great idea. Joe Dumars, Dolly Parton, Daryl Hannah, Sally Field, Julia Roberts, Olympia Dukakis, Shirley MacLaine.
You got them all.
A few of the many stars coming through Natchitoches.
Just a few.
As we're about to cross the street, the tour continues, and tell me about the importance of Catholicism to the region, to the area.
Catholicism has played an integral role in the development of Natchitoches, the Cane River region, and the Creole culture here over the last 300 years. It's how everyone sets their calendars. It's what dictates the familial relations, especially during the French and Spanish periods. In fact, Catholicism has been practiced here since 1760. The Spanish priest from over at Los Juchereau would walk the 15 miles every couple of weeks to say Mass and administer the sacraments to the French. That's how much they needed their Catholicism, how much they wanted Catholicism in their lives here at the Fort St. John Baptiste post. Behind me is the Minor Basilica. It was commissioned in 1857. Construction was interrupted during the Civil War, and it was finally finished in the 1890s. It took about 35 years to complete. It's the sixth Catholic church building in Natchitoches. Most of the earlier ones burned. There were several large fires here in the city in the early 1800s that wiped out large swaths of the urban fabric of downtown Natchitoches. And that's really why you get a mix of architectural styles throughout the city today. The Civil War started in 1861, and although the first few years of the war were kind to the Cane River region, the Red River Campaign of 1864 was not. The Yankees down in New Orleans wanted the stored cotton bales that were rumored to be in the Red River region, and they sent a very large army up here to seize those bales. And after several battles, one of them being at Mansfield, which was the last major Confederate victory in the Civil War, the Union Army retreated, and they caused complete and total devastation here in the Cane River region. Almost all the towns and plantations on the east bank of the river, from Natchitoches to the end of the Cane River, were destroyed. Our next and final stop is at the Prudhomme-Roquier House, which was built circa 1790. It is the largest bousillage structure in the United States.
Now, what exactly is a bousillage structure?
Bousillage is a traditional French and Spanish colonial building material, and it's found all over Louisiana. It's a mixture of Spanish moss, horsehair, and mud.
That's quite a combination. Pretty successful?
Pretty successful, but from what I hear, the winters are still pretty cold. At the time, this was the largest structure in Natchitoches when it was built in 1790. And this is something you would expect to see on a plantation downriver, but this was a townhome. Whoever built this was quite wealthy and quite lucky to be blessed with a structure this large in downtown Natchitoches.
And Justin, no walking tour would be complete without a stop at Lasyone's, right?
Right. Lasyone's is an institution here in Natchitoches. They make some of the best meat pies in the city, and that's our famous dish here in Natchitoches in the Cane River region.
The meat pie. Just how important is the meat pie to Natchitoches identity?
Meat pies are actually a traditional Native American dish here in northwest Louisiana, and people have been eating them in Natchitoches in the Cane River region for over 300 years now, so pretty important, but I think we've got the recipe down pat after all this time.
How important is it for a visitor coming to Natchitoches to make sure they have a meat pie before they leave?
Very important. It wouldn't be a complete trip without trying a meat pie from Lasyone's.
they're tasty.
They're better than tasty.
Education is a cornerstone to the vitality of Natchitoches. It includes a nationally renowned high school, the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts. That school sits on the campus of Northwestern State University. NSU was founded in 1884 as the Louisiana State Normal School and served as one of the state's first teachers' college. And as Natchitoches celebrates its Tri-Centennial, Northwestern State University turns 130 years old.
This is just, it's one of the most interesting historical places you could ever be, because there is no other place like this town and parish, and there's no other place like this institution.
A lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis by having the neighbors we do in Northwestern. And then Dr. Webb, who's retiring, has just been a great friend. We oftentimes sit down and say, what can we do better to help our students, to help our institutions.
This unique pairing of the schools was the vision of former state representative Jimmy Long and then NSU president Robert Harling after the pair visit a similar school in North Carolina back in the 80s.
And as they were coming back, they talked about what could be done here. You know, that's the beauty of Natchitoches. That's the beauty of Northwestern. We're all can-do people. When I talk about this being a center of innovation, that's precisely what it is. Because you need something done, I can tell you the people to call and we'll get it done.
The size of the community, the way that the community has embraced the students in the school, I think makes it ideal.
LSMSA is a public magnet school, and there is no tuition. Roughly 300 students comprise the 10th through 12th grades, and they live on campus, away from their families. Senior Claire Marshall grew up in Bastrop. Her family now lives in Slidell. She says her decision to attend LSMSA was pretty easy, and she's never looked back.
And I've always been more of an independent soul, trying to find my way, and I knew that definitely in the long run it would be worth it.
Claire excels in biology, but the Louisiana School experience allows her to explore many new interests as well.
I'm learning about expanding my creativity. I take a printmaking class, I took an exploring visual arts class, and not only am I into visual, but I'm also into performance. I love acting, I love theater.
Arthur Williams is the longest-serving faculty member. He's been teaching English here since the early 80s.
We license the imagination here. We encourage these students to be imaginative in the ways that they live their lives. But the goal is always to challenge them and get them to discover the best that they have inside of themselves.
And that includes former student Angie Drobnik-Holen, editor of PolitiFact.com, a project of the Tampa Bay Times that fact-checks statements by members of Congress and the president. She was part of the PolitiFact team that won a Pulitzer Prize for its coverage in the 2008 elections. Angie is also a proud alumna of the Louisiana School.
We had teachers who challenged us and engaged with us. And I think it was at Louisiana School where I really learned how to think critically about things, how to question things, how to develop really deep study habits. Now, I had some wonderful teachers before I got to the Louisiana School, but because of that special campus they have in Natchitoches, because of the types of students they bring together, students who really love learning, it was a very special experience.
When you bring kids who want to learn, teachers who want to teach, content specialists around a curriculum that rivals an undergraduate school anywhere, it's going to be an exciting school. To me, that's the center of what has happened for the past 30 years. I think that'll be the center for what happens in the next 30 years.
The origins of Northwestern State University is best seen in the three columns it stands guard to history and excellence. The columns are what's left of the Bullard family mansion that at one time housed a convent nearly 30 years before the school opened in 1884. The three columns are unmistakable in the NSU logo.
That site has been dedicated to post-secondary education longer than any location in the state of Louisiana. We're on hallowed grounds here. This is a place that's been dedicated to higher education for 130 years.
In 1884, the Louisiana State Legislature created the Louisiana State Normal School in Natchitoches for the preparation of teachers.
It's always been a kind of interesting place. Natchitoches has a long history, and in terms of state universities and colleges, this is one of the first colleges that the state set up to train teachers for public schools.
In addition to earning a reputation as a top-flight teachers college, NSU has grown to offer over 50 degree programs. It was the first school in Louisiana to offer degree programs in nursing and business education. Similar to the Louisiana School, Northwestern Student Life Experiences gives them a first-hand opportunity to grow, explore in their interests, and let them build a successful future.
The professors here and the faculty and staff, they really want you to become someone. They push you to do extracurricular activities. They push you to reach your highest potential. They work with you in order to get better grades and what's the best learning style for you.
This place prizes to this day excellence in teaching. It's been a leader in teacher education, and we're very grateful for that. And although it's a comprehensive university with all kinds of programs, we still harken back to our normal school roots when it comes to quality teaching and serving students and being an innovative institution.
Since 1927, the historic streets of Natchitoches have shined bright with the annual Christmas Festival of Lights.
It's very important to Natchitoches economically. It's the biggest thing that we have going. It's our signature event. We were number 3 on Yahoo Travel behind Rockefeller Center and Disney World. So that makes us very proud, and it helps bring people to Natchitoches. We want everybody to come to Natchitoches and enjoy the things that we take for granted. Locally, we seem to take a lot of this for granted, and sometimes it upsets us that there's a lot of traffic, but it is beautiful. I can go sit on that riverbank any day of the week and just relax.
But the effort to set up, test, and hang hundreds of thousands of holiday lights is anything but relaxing. The Herculean effort is led by the City of Natchitoches Electric Department and Charles Brosette.
Charles, how many lights do you hang every year?
About 300,000 lights a year.
Wow.
Is what we hang.
And when do you get started?
We get started the second week in September hanging this, 40 hours a week, sometimes more.
That's 3 months.
Yes, sir.
Charles has been part of the Christmas lighting crew for over 20 years.
I'm imagining you're fixing lights in your sleep.
Yes, sir. and plus we keep the lights on in the city too while we do all this, maintain
oh,
this
yeah.
too.
Yeah, have another job.
Yes, sir. It's a year-long operation. From the minute we take them down last year, they start redoing them. We have people redoing everything, rebulbing everything, tying all the streamers back together. And also the new set pieces that come in, we're having to put the wire and the bulbs on it. And then in September we start hauling them down here on trailers, and it takes quite a few hours to put all this up, quite a few hours to put this up, and then at about October we start working at night to make sure all of them are lit, all of them are on, to ensure that when we do have the main turn on, they're on. Basically we have it down to pretty good science on how we do this. Everything's numbered. The poles go in specific spots for the signs that hang on them and everything, so everything's pretty well in order.
How important are those test runs before the holidays begin?
They're important. We want them to come on. We don't want to fail. We are the electric department, and we don't want them to fail.
Failure is not an option, and after all the hard work by the City Electric Department, the result is miles of smiles by Christmas participants of all ages for the next month and a half.
Is it worth it at the end?
Oh, yes, sir. To see the people enjoy this, see all the kids come out at night. Because I can tell you when we're working on them and testing them at night, people start flooding the area because they hear that we're turning on the lights. And they start flooding the area. To see the kids jumping up and down, seeing all this, it's well worth it.
It's also well worth your time to visit the wonderful shops and restaurants along historic downtown Natchitoches during the 45 days of the Christmas Festival of Lights celebration. If you're lucky, you'll even chat with a shopkeeper named Dickens.
Sandra, what's your favorite time of the year?
Christmas is my favorite time.
That's a shocker.
It is. It is. I love Christmas.
How long have you had this store?
10 years this year. So it's an anniversary for me also.
Sandra Dickens is the owner of Dickens & Company gift shop along Front Street.
So Christmas isn't just a one-day event in Natchitoches, is it?
45 nights of Christmas lights. We start in November and we end in January. I won't tell you how old I am, but it goes back many years. I can remember coming as a child to the Christmas festival. And it's been through hot times when you could wear your shorts and cold times when you're freezing to death. And then those very, very pleasant times that everything is just perfect.
What does Christmas in Natchitoches mean to you?
It's just wonderful. It's magical. I love the people. I love to see the kids come. I like to see the looks on their faces. And even the older people, I just love to see the look on their face and hear their stories about Natchitoches.
There is no denying the holiday warmth and cheer that overflows along the banks of the Cane River Lake. It's a timeless tradition that keeps inviting young and old holiday travelers to enjoy a Christmas season that will light up your heart.
Folks from out of town, when they see the Christmas festival, what do you hear people say?
Oohs and ahs. They say it's really good. They really enjoy it. We have people come from other countries that we've talked to, and they just can't believe the magnitude that we have down here. Set pieces, Christmas lights everywhere, and Christmas spirit.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org. Funding for this program was made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you. Thank you.